Good morning, everyone. Testing 1, 2. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I try to be a little informal in my talks, and one of the first things I want to start off with is actually a quote in my book. Being human is an inherently flawed process. It is incredibly messy, it is incredibly beautiful, and it is incredibly powerful, the human experience. First off, I want to start off by basically making all of you a guarantee. Every person in the world, every person in this room, every one of you is inherently brilliant in something, not necessarily everything, but in something. And one of the most important things that we have to realize is that we need each other. I need you. We all contribute different things to society, and we all help gel it together in a beautiful way. But the key thing to that is we have to understand how we all need each other and how I have skills that you don't have and you have skills that I don't have. So who am I? I am CEO and co-founder of EasyKale Labs. I am also the science guy of EasyKale Labs, and I'm also the director of the Draw a Smile Foundation, where we've been feeding the homeless with the program Are You Hungry for the past 8+ years every week. I'm also an author of the Common Sense Principles book series, as well as Professor Meow Meow. It's a children's book. Also, if you don't have the money to buy my book and you really want to take the effort and work on things, I will happily email you a free copy. That's my commitment to the world. I'm a scientist. Back in 2013, we had a very interesting and unusual discovery with the natural vegetable kale, where we found that it selectively kills melanoma cancer cells in vitro while not affecting non-cancerous cells. And in fact, we've expanded our research quite a bit since then. And then also, I just want to give a quick shout out to the loving memory of my co-founder and dear friend, Rich Sun, who just passed away. But because of him, I was able to get the official partnership with Belhaven University, where we're continuing our cancer research. Hush, hush. Also, I'm one of the board directors for the Mississippi Food Network, which is the largest food bank in the entire state of Mississippi. And actually, most people don't realize how bad it is over there sometimes. 1 in 4 children go to bed hungry in the state of Mississippi, and that's in the United States of America. And I'm also one of the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club. And also, I was one of the, one of the emergency COVID-19 task force members for the city of Jackson. Speaking of COVID, before that, actually, I forgot to say, even though I was deeply affected with COVID, we were still coordinating food for the entire city of Jackson, and the city of Jackson ended up giving me a proclamation, calling me a community hero, and also welcoming my wife to the city of Jackson. And I recently got married in November last year, so that's pretty exciting. But as I mentioned earlier, I was one of the worst cases of COVID to have survived in the state of Mississippi. I went into the hospital for something unrelated. I had an abdominal pain, and they found, anyway, the nurse ended up sneezing on me after surgery, and that's how I got COVID. And people always undervalue their workers, and this is happening especially with the essential workers and the healthcare workers, where, for example, one of my friends, she's a nurse, she got infected with COVID, and basically her hospital was pushing her to come back to work after 5 days when she was still testing positive for COVID, and they told her to wear a double mask. So it's no mystery why I got infected, but anyway, till this day, I can't even begin to tell, like, even if you see me walking up the stairs or if you see me walking in the conference, I am incredibly slow. I'm in a tremendous amount of pain. A lot of people ask me what it's like. If you can imagine a child yelling in your ear at top volume the entire time, that's kind of what it's like to a degree. And then also after being vaccinated, I ended up developing a new symptom where basically I feel like I'm being stung by wasps for hours on end. So that's why I said if you see me moving a little slow, that's one of the reasons why. But I got to talk to some of the top doctors in the country, and I ended up seeing some of the top specialists, and I was given so many experimental treatments while in the hospital because, like I said, I was in the ICU for close to a month. And they thought it was all tied to the experimental treatments, and when I went to some of the top doctors in New York, they actually told me out of 1,000 patients, they see 2 or 3 like me, and it's actually tied back to our autism. So I don't know if you know any people who have autism, but that could be one of the things that they're suffering, and they're just starting to realize that now. And also being autistic, I don't take things for granted. So I don't just assume, hey, this is what he, she, or other, or they are thinking or mean or such and such. So I just ask, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you please help me understand? In fact, actually, a lot of people, when they find out I'm autistic, they're like, how do you feed the homeless? And I'm like, okay. So is the person hungry? Yes. Do I have food? Yes. Do I give it to them? Yes. That's it. It's not that complicated. It's just about doing the right thing and capturing your humanity, you know? So I have a couple of acronyms that I use when I'm trying to lead teams. I've led many different teams over the years, and TEAM is one of them. I know it's kind of on the nose, right? Teamwork. But yeah, I'll walk you through it and help you understand a little bit what I mean. And it helps. These bullet points help keep me organized. I try to keep it as simple as possible for myself to lead my teams effectively, because it's not about me, it's about us. So first one is teamwork, next one is empathy, next one is attitude, and lastly, motivation. So I have a picture of one of my favorite superhero teams of all time, and I'm a really big geek, X-Men. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the X-Men from Marvel Comics, but they spend hours training in the Danger Room. And one of the reasons why is because they learn each other's strengths to enhance it, and they also compensate for each other's weaknesses. Not even the Avengers have it quite as down-packed as the X-Men, but the X-Men really have to go against the grain on multiple things, so they really had to hone in their teamwork. So it's really quite inspiring. And then empathy. You must understand what your team wants. What does your team dream about? You as a leader and manager and, you're basically a professional dream catcher. So you need to figure out and find out and talk to your team and find out what is it that they're dreaming about? What are they hoping to get out of life, and help them build a plan towards stepping toward those goals. So for example, let's say one of your team members says they want a Lamborghini. It might be beneficial to sit down and talk to them about how they can structure a plan so they can achieve what they want. As the team leader, you set the attitude. So if you panic, your team panics. If you're confident, your team is confident. If you are happy, most of the time your team is happy. But most importantly, like I said, you set the tone, you set the attitude. And you have to know your why. You have to know why you do what you do, why you wake up in the morning, why do you get out of bed? Like, for example, right now with my severe pain after COVID, if I didn't know my why, it would be very easy to say, tomorrow, I won't do it, tomorrow. But when you understand your why, it pushes you harder. And till this day, actually, I've been asked by numerous schools, elementary schools, colleges, nonprofits. When I'm leading the nonprofit, the Draw a Smile Foundation, we have hundreds of volunteers, and not a single one of them get paid. But they work harder than many of the paid employees of these nonprofits. So they kept inviting me to talk and say, how do you do it? And I can tell you the answer is very simple, but very hard to execute. I lead with my heart. When I lead with my heart, I do things that no one else will necessarily do for the team, because I see what needs to be done, and I'm willing to roll my sleeves up and get dirty with it. So, know your why. There's no I in team. Sorry. I'm a failed comedian, that's why I became a scientist. But there is an I hidden in the a-hole. Sorry. I'm sorry. At least I can laugh at my own jokes. Anyway, another thing that I use is something called the 4 T's. So first of all, think about the situation, analyze it, observe it, look at it from a macro and a micro point of view. Fully try to understand what is the problem we're addressing. Then take action. This is where overthinkers tend to spend hours overthinking and never doing anything. Just take action. Then take responsibility for that action. Because if you messed up, tell the team, I messed up, and then just keep it moving. And then lastly, take notes. So improve upon the situation, learn from it, and then keep going. You must keep moving forward. One of the reasons why I have hustle culture here, because before I got infected with COVID and before I had all this pain and suffering, I was grinding like crazy. And also being autistic, it helped me to have a hyper-focus mode that I would go into. But essentially, like when I was doing my cancer research, I would be in the lab till 4 o'clock in the morning, go home, take a couple of hours nap, and probably then head back to classes in the morning, and then go back to the lab and rinse and repeat. And as a function of that, actually, it was very unhealthy. I drank way too many Monster energy drinks, and I gained a ton of weight. I was about 420 pounds. I was a size 56, and I'm currently a size 36, so hopefully never going back to that. Oh, thank you. But yeah, the hustle culture is incredibly toxic. And one of the things that I learned after being affected by COVID is that why throw 100 punches when you can make 2 punches count? So I've learned to work smarter, not harder, and depend more upon my team. So you got to be able to laugh at yourself. You got to minimize your ego. You got to be able to have fun doing what you're doing. Most people just want to be loved. If you really zoom out in a macro sense and you start to really analyze people, analyze the homeless, the poor, and almost everyone in this world, most people just want to be loved and acknowledged. So most people also want to be respected as a function of that. And when you give people respect, you'll be amazed at the amount of respect you get back. And you just got to trust people. I know trust is a really dangerous thing to talk about, but be helpful and kind. You know, out of my various circles of friends, they constantly vote me to be the person that would be on if they were ever stranded on an island, they would bring me. And I was like, oh, is it because I'm a scientist? They said, no, it's because you're highly adaptable. So you always must add value to the group to the point that if people were in a life-threatening situation, they're like, I want this person with me. So that way they can add value to the group. So am I necessarily the smartest person? Hell no. But one thing I will do is I will work my damn hardest to find the smartest people to work with us. So as I was talking about my cancer research earlier, we brought on some of the top scientists, and these people added on innovations focused on humanity, and I am so proud of them till this day. And we're still making new breakthroughs, even now. But again, the tone, you have to set the tone. And one of the biggest things that you can do is kindness is the biggest and most powerful form of wealth. So the more kind you are, the more, well, even some people assume that you're incredibly wealthy. But yeah, kindness is the language of wealth. Usually, pessimism does not work out so well for most people. It's very powerful, and it helps you move forward when you're able to see the bigger picture and stay positive as much as possible, but not toxic positivity, because that's delusion. Now, another one of the things that I like to execute for my teams, and this is where they always laugh at me and they're like, Bilal, you're really annoying with this. But I basically go, Ela! So I do, Ela! And the reason why I make that specific noise and I have that pattern is because it makes it easier for me to remember. So, envision, understand, see the lay of the land, see what the problem is, and then fully understand by talking and communicating with your team so you can envision it. Then execute. Just get it done. Do something. It doesn't mean it has to be a perfect move. You're never going to make a perfect move. But basically, at that point, empower your team to be able to cover up your screw-ups and their screw-ups. So even though you're growing and you're making mistakes, build a strong team to that way they're also empowered to do things. For example, let's say in a retail setting, you have your team and they have no idea that they're able to refund the customer up to a certain amount. So every time a customer is upset, comes up to you and says, oh, I want a refund, blah, blah, blah. And basically, instead of having the problem dealt with right then and there, where the customer will most probably be happy, even with a smaller amount of a refund, but they have to delay it, and then they end up pushing it to a manager, and then you're just taking so much valuable time away from that person. So if you empower your team to understand what they can and cannot do, you'll be amazed at the results. Then learning. You gotta learn from what's happening. So once you learn, you take notes, and then you adapt. You adjust accordingly, and you repeat the cycle again. So then you just go, Ela, Ela. Story time. So I'm going to tell you a really funny story back when I used to feed the homeless there every week. I mean, we're still doing it till this day, but in the very beginning when we first started, I don't understand. Oh, I just realized in this picture, whoops, you can actually see me, and I'm about 420 pounds there. Got a big gut hanging too. It's pretty cool. But in the very beginning of Are You Hungry, when we first started, I don't understand why the team, like the homeless were making two different lines. So one group was all white people and the other group was all black people. And I was just like, I never told them to make two separate lines. They just kept doing it. And this was in the state of Mississippi many, many years ago. And after a while, it started causing tensions, and I eventually just got really upset. And I said, why are you guys making two lines? This doesn't make sense. I never told you to do so. And basically, they started yelling some racist terms. The black guys were calling the white guys crackers, and then the white guys were calling the black guys something I won't say. It's an N-word. And then at that point, I got really frustrated. I said, this doesn't even make sense. I said, you are both poor. And at that point, they were like, oh, damn. We didn't really think about it. I was like, it's different if you guys, one group has an advantage over the other. I said, you're both homeless and you're both eating here, so what's the point? So next thing you know, the very next week when we actually fed, I ran out of food. There were more people than I expected. And next thing you know, we all of a sudden crossed that racial divide where the white guys were giving some of the greens that they had, and some of the black guys were giving their fried chicken that they had extra. And I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, and fried fish and a whole bunch of food. They started sharing it. And I was like, oh, I need to go buy some food. And they're like, no, I'm full. We'll share with them. And then next thing you know, we have one line. It's no longer two separate lines. And next thing you know, they started becoming friends, and then they were talking about how they were planning on going to the Mississippi Comic-Con, and I actually ended up seeing some of them in the Mississippi Comic-Con. I was like, how'd you get in? Anyway, but yeah, they were talking about Venom and all sorts of different Marvel comic characters and Batman and DC comic characters. But next thing you know, all of a sudden, once we broke that awkward friction, they became friends. And they're all still friends till this day. It's actually quite remarkable. But yeah, I love question and answers. This is where I really thrive. So I hope you guys can ask me some really wonderful questions. Please reach out. And if you also wanted a free copy of my book, you can email myself or you can email the marvelous Mina. And also I'm on social media. Glad Scientist is my personal one. So you'll see pictures of action figures and cats and all sorts of craziness. So just be aware of that. Our professional company one is Easy Kale Shaker. And also I have a new one that I just started called Hairy Kitty. So it's actually one of my cats called Professor Meow Meow or Dr. Mew. And then my other cat I also have is Biggie Scarface Giovanni. So you get to see cute pictures of them and then them interacting and me playing with my hairy kitties. But yeah, I'm really silly. Anyway, Q&A. Oh, by the way, I can't see very well. That's another thing that happened with my surviving COVID. I almost lost my vision. So if you have a question, really raise your hand so I can make it really prominent so I can see you. Is there anything? No? Well, anyway, here's my contact information. You guys can take a picture or reach out to me at a later point. Also, if you just want to see everything I said kind of in a quick summary. So for the general outline, we have team, teamwork, empathy, attitude, motivation. For you as the leader, you have the 4 T's. Think about the situation, take action, take responsibility, and take notes. And then to implement with your team, ELA. And if you ever forget, it's just really simple, ELA. Envision, execute, then empower, learn, and adapt. Thank you.